Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up, we have our Pacific News Wrap. Also,
it was a surreal feeling because I remember myself looking up and looking at the planes back in the day when they used to come over.
a Cook Islands aviator returns home, and a Kiribati minister wants special seats for women in Parliament. To have a look at what's in the news, I'm joined by our Morning Bulletin editor, Christina Persico. Talofa Christina, we start off with something that's possibly happening more than we realise, deep-fake pornography.
Kia ora, Susanna. Yeah, so a deepfake is basically an image or even a recording which has been made to misrepresent someone. So the tech allows someone to take my face and put it on a picture of a woman's body in a bikini or on a pornographic video, or make it look like they have a recording of me saying something I never said. The thing is, now these deepfakes don't look like a bad Photoshop job. They can actually look really realistic. So in the Pacific Daily News, Guam is looking at a bill called the Non-Consensual Intimate Depictions Act. It seeks to hold people accountable for exploiting or defaming others with AI-generated sexual content. One of the sponsors of the bill is Senator William Parkinson. He's cited rising international cases where most victims were teenage girls. He says the bill is a proactive step to protect Guam from the abuse of deepfake technology.
Heading over to Fiji now, where there's been some very sad news. Former Fijian netballer and coach Unaisi Rokura has died.
Yeah, this is a very sad story. It's understood Una, as she was known, was gathering mussels before this incident, which is a suspected drowning. Fiji police confirmed they have recovered her body. Fiji Netball has released a statement saying it is with profound sadness they acknowledged the tragic loss. They said she represented Fiji in 6 Pacific Games, 2 Commonwealth Games and 2 Netball World Championships as well. She also coached the Pearls and she was involved in several other sports. Fiji Netball President Rubian Sorovaki has said Una was not only a remarkable athlete and coach, but also a mentor and friend to many.
Condolences to Una's family and her loved ones. Okay, in terms of the political sphere, what's happening there?
The Samoan Prime Minister is in New Zealand for healthcare, and he's also fit in a meeting with Foreign Minister Winston Peters. La'aule Alemale Etoa Palata Eval Schmidt and Mr Peters met at the Samoan Consulate, which is in Mangere in Auckland. The Samoa government says they talked about RSC seasonal work, they talked about border security to tackle drug trafficking, and the priorities of the new government there in Samoa. Over in Nauru, President David Adiang has named his new cabinet. This includes former President Lionel Aingi Mea as the Minister assisting the President and the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade. There's also the South Pacific Defence Ministers meeting, which is in Chile this week. New Zealand's Associate Defence Minister Chris Penk spoke to Pacific Mornings about this. He says a certain amount of it is just relationship building. It's also an important time for them to think about what their future naval fleet will look like. He says the Pacific is a peaceful ocean and they hope to keep it that way.
All right, over to health now. There's a regional committee meeting this week in the Pacific. What can you tell me about that?
Bear with me, this is a bit of a mouthful. The 76th session of the World Health Organization's Regional Committee for the Western Pacific. That's in Fiji this week. Health leaders from 38 countries were expected to be there. Key issues on the agenda included tackling non-communicable diseases through stronger alcohol and tobacco control and bringing oral health into primary services as well. Delegates are also set to launch a new 5-year strategy on climate and health.
All right, and just before we wrap up, Christina, staying with health, we've been keeping an eye on measles cases in Aotearoa. What's the latest there?
So Health NZ says there's a case in Auckland now. They say the person recently travelled overseas to an area with a known outbreak, but they are not connected to the previous cases in Aotearoa. Health NZ says there's a low risk of spread to the community, but the person was at Auckland City Hospital ED for nearly 10 hours last Friday. The advice is if you were there at the same time, so from about 10:30am on Friday, to check you've been vaccinated and to watch for symptoms.
Whakawelahi, Christina. That's Christina Persico, our Morning Bulletin editor with a Pacific News Wrap. A Cook Islander says returning home as a member of the Royal New Zealand Air Force has been a career highlight. Sergeant Mata Tūnoa Mata left the tiny island of Mauke 20 years ago as a 16-year-old. Now he's back as part of a big New Zealand Defence Force exercise. Tiana Haxton has more.
When Air Force logistics specialist Mata Tūnoa Mata touched down on his home island aboard a C-130J Hercules, it was a historic moment for both himself and the aircraft. On the one hand, it was the first time a C-130J aircraft has ever landed on Mauke, and on the other, an emotional homecoming for Sergeant Mata, who recalls as a child growing up on the island watching other Air Force planes flying overhead.
It was a surreal feeling because I remember myself looking up and looking at the planes back in the day when they used to come over. And now I'm looking down on everyone as we flew over them. So cool, just sitting up there in the cockpit and waving to everyone.
Mata has flown into war zones like Afghanistan and Iraq and accompanied New Zealand Prime Ministers across Southeast Asia. But he says touching down on Mauke, an island with a population of only 240, has been the most meaningful journey of his career so far.
Yeah, this trip definitely tops all the other destinations I've been to. And if I don't get another opportunity to fly somewhere else in the world, then I'm happy. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to come back.
Born and raised in Mauke, Mata left the island at 16 to finish school in Auckland before joining the Royal New Zealand Air Force. Now 36, he says returning home in uniform was a full circle moment.
There was only two people I wanted to meet, which was mum and dad. But then once I met them, the whole island wanted to meet me as well. So the drums were going. They told me, well, you've done all this, you might as well dance. So I broke into a dance and everyone was laughing and very cheerful. The whole day, I couldn't stop smiling.
The visit to Mauke was part of Exercise Tropic Twilight, a humanitarian and disaster resilience operation funded by New Zealand's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Sergeant Mata played a key role in the mission, helping plan and manage the aircraft's load, from vehicles and supplies to personnel and cargo. Troop Commander Lieutenant Jared Wilson sees the team of around 30 personnel focused on essential community upgrades.
So that's included the water network here and the power network. So we've installed some temperature control, some air conditioners, some heat pumps to try and extend the life of the equipment. We've also done a variety of upgrades at the school, construction work like building walkways so students can move from classroom to classroom in the rain without getting wet, as well as constructing a new playground and putting more power points in the classrooms.
Additional troops from Australia, Fiji, Tonga and Vanuatu were also involved in the month-long mission which wrapped up last week.
That was RNZ Pacific's Tiana Haxton with that story. In Kiribati, the Women's Minister, who said female MPs should be elected on merit, has had a change of heart and now believes there should be special seats for women in Parliament. Ruth Cross Kwansing told Lydia Lewis issues like domestic violence and rape won't change unless there's representation at the top.
Gosh, our statistics in the Pacific are some of the highest in the world. I know in Kiribati it's around 68, 70%, right? And this is it's alarming, but then again, this is across the board in the Pacific area. So when we come together and we have these conversations regionally, those conversations then come back to form the national policies, which then feed into the programs that we develop. The Pacific Partnership to End Violence Against Women and Girls. And so that's being handled by SPC, and that's obviously guided by the UN and Pacific Islands Forum. So all of these feed into those frameworks, which then trickle into the programs that we actively on the ground, create. One of the things that probably, frustrates me a little bit at the moment is that I know that UN is sort of a little bit under fire, and because people are asking, what is it that you really do? In the recent UNGA, President Trump actually gave them a lot of grief at UNGA, claiming that they were almost inconsequential in terms of the way that he was describing the work that UN does. But, of course, we know that is absolutely not true, because the work that they do is actually quite critical in terms of how they frame and structure everything and create such critical strategies and ways of thinking in terms of the work that needs to be done.
Is Kiribati feeling the impacts of that pooled funding, or what impacts are you seeing, or what is the trickle-on effect?
Look, there is, because UN Women, I think in a recent meeting that I had with them, did mention that one of their programs wasn't going to continue because the funding had been pulled. Recognize that in government ministries, we're already constrained with our resources, right? And so we depend very heavily on the partnerships that we have with agencies like the UN. So when funding is pulled for UN programs, that means that program pretty much just stops in that format, and then we have to focus on something else.
Well, you've recently come back from WIDE in Fiji, which was after the UNGA. What came of that, and was that a nice follow-on from what was discussed in the UN?
Oh, definitely. And again, it just shows all the different work that's being done by the UN women agencies. But that one, yes, to strengthen, we're particularly focused on that event on strengthening political participation for women and youth. I guess to bear in mind, like the positions that we're in as, I guess, ministers and directors and things like that, secretaries of ministries, we're spread across a whole range of issues, especially you think about mine, which is women, youth, sports, social affairs. We have NGOs, communities, churches, people with disabilities, all under one ministry. And so having these types of conversations takes us really deep into one particular issue and helps us understand the constraints, the developmental constraints that exist when you don't have equal participation in politics. We are literally impoverished by the fact that we don't have women in political roles, right? Because when you only have half of one gender kind of pushing at the problems, you don't have all of the other capacity and power and capability that comes when you have both working together. So helping us understand how that constraint affects us at a developmental level was really powerful, right? And the other aspect to it was I was one of those people that was like, no, we don't need temporary special measures. And again, now I've come to realize I was way off the mark on that, because through that conversation, I came to realize just because I got in on my own merits, and I know that, like yourself, I'm not the same as everyone in my island. I do actually have all the advantages of growing up in a mixed race family, with a better education, with more international exposure of having lived overseas, all the technical expertise that I've gained from working in process-driven environments for over 20 years. So no, I didn't come in with a level playing field either for any of the candidates that were running against me. The thing that I came to realize in a nutshell about how we need to implement temporary special measures is the same principle as when you've got someone who's sick. You don't feed them the same food or just give them multivitamins. The work that you do to support that person is quite significant. It's special food, it's special medication. And so you take that very same approach to women's political participation and you go, we need to do things differently. It needs to be special to get it to where it needs to be. And if that means appointing people, then so be it.
That was Kiribati's Ruth Cross Kwansing speaking to Lydia Lewis. That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.